Hello YouTube, it's your good friend TheMovieCuban here, back again with another build guide for all of you to enjoy. Now last time we talked about the Legacy of Nightmares Fireback build, which frankly is a very powerful build and is a rather engaging gameplay style if you want to run greater rifts and the like. If you're not running the ZDPS witch doctor that we talked about 2 videos ago. But with patch 2.4.1 coming out this coming Tuesday, I've been in kind of a I've been kind of in a lull here, waiting for the new content to all update and the new numbers for the different sets to get put in. So today we're going to do a build just for funsies. A build that, while it's not going to win any contests, and it's not going to do terrifically well in greater rift scenarios, it is a gameplay style that I have rather missed from the old days. It combines basically the thoughts behind 2 builds that I used to run quite frequently. And it brings back to the forefront an item that for a long time in the Witch Doctor community has gone unappreciated. So, without further ado, let's talk about my Plague of Toads build. Now, as you can see here, we're going to be running the Rhen'Ho Flayer, so that our Plague of Toads seek out enemies and can explode twice. This is the backbone of the build and what I'm trying to do. You're going to need this more than anything if you want to try and run this build. I really lucked out in terms of rolls for the Rhen'Ho Flayer. I'm actually really happy with how this came out. We're going to run the Eucapian Serpent in our offhand. Since we are going to be running a zombie dog, it will provide us with a little more toughness and allow us to survive in T10, which is mostly where we're going to be staying. Since this is a Legacy of Nightmares build, you are going to need the Legacy of Nightmares set, so both the Welling Host and the Litany of the Undaunted. Hopefully you can actually find an Ancient Welling Host, because this game hates me in terms of this particular ring. For boots, ideally you'll be running the illusory boots, but since I don't have them, any ancient pair of boots will do just fine. You're going to want to run Swampland Waders for that extra poison roll, because we are going to be stacking poison damage in this build. Ancient Witching Hour, this is for the extra attack speed and critical hit damage. You can't run Belt of Transcendence to get fetishes since we're not running a mana spender. So this, or maybe the String of Ears if you want a little bit more toughness, are the go-to choices in this particular setup. You're going to want an Aquila Cuirass. Since we're not spending any resource, this 50% damage reduction is going to be with us all the time, which is phenomenal. For gloves, basically any ancient gloves that you can have. I would personally recommend maybe Tasker and Theo's or St. Archu's Gauge off the top of my head. Run Tasker and Theo if you want your dog to do a little more damage. Run St. Archu's Gauge if you want a little more toughness right after killing elites and whatnot. Completely up to you on that one. For bracers, these are the only ancient bracers I had to spare, so they're currently what I'm wearing. Ideally you'd be wearing maybe Nephalem bracers, so that you can get those extra elites spawned. Lakumba's Ornament maybe if you want to work Soul Harvest into the build, but I'd probably recommend Nephalem bracers or Lacunae Prowlers for that extra attack speed. For the helm, you are going to want the Ticklandian Visage so that you get some extra time for Horrify. I got a 6-second roll. I'd love an 8-second roll, but I'll take what I can get, quite frankly. Best in slot's going to be a Hellfire Amulet. Try and get poison damage rolled onto it and intelligence, and after that, basically up to you on what you want to roll on there. I'd say maybe focus on critical hit damage and chance, just so that your attack hits a little harder, since we are using a mana generator and they're not the strongest of attacks in the game. For shoulders, any pair of Ancient Shoulders would be ideal. I don't have a pair of Ancient Shoulders right now, so I'm making do with these, since having your items be indestructible is pretty nice. And make sure, in terms of rolls, for like stat-wise, try and get some cooldown on your shoulders and your offhand. And if you can swing it, maybe try and get some on your Hellfire Amulet. But frankly, we're going to have enough cooldown thanks to our skills themselves that we don't really worry about that. For legendary gems, I'm running Simplicity Strength to give those toads a little more punch, and for the 2% heal on hit. Golgotha Swiftness for the increased cooldown reduction and attack speed. And then Esoteric Alteration for some damage reduction, since you're going to want to be tanky in this particular setup. Is probably the best way I can word that. So, speaking of skills, Plague of Toads, Reign of Toads is the star of this particular build. You could run Addling Toads for the chance of confusion if you want, but since we're running Mass Confusion Paranoia, I feel like that's not particularly necessary. So with Mass Confusion, all of our enemies are going to be charmed, and some of them will fight for you for 12 seconds. And all enemies in the area of Mass Confusion take 30% additional damage for 12 seconds. We're using Horrify, Frightening Aspect, to immobilize everything with fear, and then gain 50% additional armor for 8 seconds after casting it. We're using Big Bad Voodoo Slam Dance, additional attack and movement speed for all your allies, and 30% increased damage for the duration, which is always nice. We're going to run Spirit Walk Jaunt to give us that extra 3 seconds in case we get into a hairy situation. And then summon Zombie Dogs with Rabid Dogs in order to work off of our poison motif and to allow for a damage over time effect, which from what I've heard can indeed stack, which can give you quite a bit of damage on those enemies with really, really big health bars. For your passive skills, I have Confidence Ritual on my Hellfire Amulet, and I'm running Grave Injustice here for the 1% of max life and mana, and 1 second cooldown of all skills when an enemy dies within 20 yards. I'm running Tribal Rites to help reduce the cooldowns of Big Bad Voodoo and Mass Confusion, since they are rather sizable cooldowns. Running Fetish Psychophants so that we have a 15% chance to summon a fetish to fight for us for 60 seconds. And then Swampland Attunement to give us just a little bit more resistance in case we get surrounded by a mob and need a little bit more toughness as we're dealing with them. For our Kanai Cube passives, so you can see the pictures here, we're running the Star Metal Kukri This is why we're running Fetish Sycophants to help reduce the cooldown for Big Bad Voodoo even more. We're running the Grim Reaper so that we can have a chance to summon Mimics that will cast some of our equipped spells. The Mimics will cast Horrify, Plague of Toads, and Mass Confusion, to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure they don't cast Big Bad Voodoo, so sorry, you're going to have to be responsible for that one. And then I am running the Tall Man's Finger, since it is just going to be easier to have a big old dog that can do a bunch of damage, as opposed to having a bunch of little dogs, which frankly, since we're not running any passives that beef up the zombie dogs at all, they can die rather easily, even on T10. And for our paragon points, make sure you max out your movement speed first between your boots and your paragons, and then pour everything into intelligence. For offense, I would recommend starting with cooldown reduction and attack speed, then worry about critical hit damage and critical hit chance. For defense, resist all, armor, life percent, then life regen. And for your utility, area damage, life on hit, and then worry about resource cost reduction and gold find. So I'm going to go ahead now and pop open a Nephalem Rift for you guys to see some gameplay of the build. If you don't feel like watching the gameplay, then I'd like to thank you for sitting with us this far. I hope you like the build. Maybe if you felt that Rhen'Ho's been underappreciated until now, it's probably nice to see somebody take the time to give it some attention. But you can go ahead and leave now if you don't want to watch the gameplay. And for the rest of you who do want to watch gameplay, here we go. So make sure you summon your big old zombie dog right away, so you can have that additional damage reduction. And then we're gonna look for a nice juicy pack here. Lay down your Big Bad Voodoo and Mass Confusion, and then just drop your frogs. Make sure you keep refreshing Horrify so you can have that additional armor and keep your enemies in place. With how much cooldown we have, it is possible to practically permanently fear groups of enemies, which is actually really nice. It's a playstyle that I used to absolutely love way back in the day, and this is my best attempt of trying to revive that particular playstyle. So you just drop your toads on everything, horrify it so they don't move, drop Big Bad Voodoo whenever it's cooled down so you can have that additional damage, and then just go nuts. As you can see, everything dies pretty quickly. You can hit them with Mass Confusion whenever you feel like it. Basically on cooldown, I would recommend. Well, either hit it on cooldown or when you're surrounded by a really dense pack of monsters. Because otherwise you're not really going to need both Horrify and Mass Confusion at the same time. But as you can see, this build does really well on T10. Elites basically just melt away rather quickly, to the point that I barely have to worry about affixes. Like, even with these electricity guys, I usually hate them, but with how quickly we're hitting with our Plague of Toads and how quickly we're healing thanks to our Simplicity Strength Gem, we don't really have to worry about that. Oh boy, another elite pack. Horrify him in place. Maybe mass confusion him for good measure. And then you just sit back and reap the rewards, basically. Here's a nice dense group we can take advantage of. Though I honestly hate the Morlu incinerators. They are literally one of the most annoying enemies here in the game. Oh boy, more elites! Oh, and these ones are jailers. My favorite. They're dropping fire on me, bro. No. But even with all these affixes, my health only really drops down like a quarter at most. And then as soon as I hit things, that just surges back up. Honestly, with as many health glows as we pick up here, you could probably get away with running Gruesome Feast. But frankly, that would just be for reasons of getting more damage, and it's not super necessary. So, up to you. Basically, this is just a template for those of you who wanted to run a Rhen'Ho Flayer build. You can obviously work off of this, tool it to whatever you feel like, because at the end of the day, it's got to be a playstyle that you enjoy. But I don't mind running around and fearing everything, and then just letting my toads and my pets deal with everything. Like, I am perfectly okay with that. So you just horrify everything, keep it nice and in place so that you can deal with it at your leisure. And just make sure you keep killing things. Because the more you kill things, the faster your cooldowns reset, and the more you can use your skills, like Horrify and Mass Confusion. Since your fetishes are going to be doing most of the work in terms of resetting Big Bad Voodoo. And this isn't a build where you gotta go out of your way to farm elite packs. As you can see, I enjoy dense mobs of whites just as much as I enjoy hunting down elites. Like, this build can deal with both. It's not really a problem. The only time you're really going to run into trouble is with the really annoying elemental affixes, like Arcane here. Oh boy, another elite pack. Wow, I couldn't find any on the first floor, and now there's just a bunch coming to greet me. but I love horrifying them because then they can't do anything. And like I said, we have enough cooldown that you can basically permanently lock a enemy in place with your horrify if you set it just right. But you gotta make sure that you're killing enough that you can keep doing that. Here comes the Red Guardian. Oh boy, Stone Singer. Let's see how quickly we can deal with him. And he's gone! So there you go, guys. Just a fun little build that lets the Rhen'Ho Flayer actually see some use. Frankly, Legacy of Nightmares makes it so that any build you feel like running can run decently well. But that's the video, guys. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more build guide videos from me, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section below. Always love hearing from you guys. And until next time, guys, I'm TheMovieCuban. Good luck. Happy hunting.